So hello, everyone, and welcome to the Analytics Instrumentation Sync on the 25th of April, 2023. And I think, Sam, you want to start us off with the milestone presentation for 16.0.
Yeah, so let me go ahead and share my screen. The link is in the agenda if you'd like to follow along at home. So we completed our planning exercise for 16.0, which is what is reflected in this issue. And this is going to be running us from April 18th through May 17th. And really the high-level objectives that we have for this one are around supporting the business's needs around this concept called registration features, which I'll talk more about in a second. Working on the snowplow collectors for analytics, as well as making more progress on the new unified tracking API. And so if you're not familiar with registration features, what these are parts of the product where if you as a free GitLab free self-managed user agree to send GitLab Inc. service ping data and other sort of analytics instrumentation data, we will unlock new features in the product for you. So this is a sort of middle ground between being a free user and a premium user. And you're still a free user in the sense that you don't pay GitLab Inc. any money, but you're giving us data which helps us make better product decisions, better product improvements, and unlock some of those features which are typically gated by premium licenses. The business uses these registration features as a way to get information from free users that are more likely to convert into paying customers, whether that's going to be for a premium or an ultimate license. But one thing we've realized is that there's not a ton of actual registration features available in the product. So what we're going to be focusing on in 16.0 is making additional features available as registration features. And so what that's going to do is provide more value to those free users to actually start sending us telemetry and instrumentation data so that we can do better modeling, better outreach to those people that are more likely to convert into either premium or ultimate paying customers. So with that sort of context, let's go through the issue listing. As always, we have our previous release carryover. We want to make sure that we don't accrue technical debt by leaving things half finished. Let's go ahead and finish these up first before we move on to other things so that we don't have projects that we have to ultimately revisit and probably rework later in the future. The registration features epic. So these 5 features are the ones that Sarah Waldner, who was the PM taking charge on this project, selected for us to move down. If you've been part of the group for a while, our group moved some of the original features down to registration features. That predates me, so I don't have much more context beyond that. But the ones we're going to be focusing on are password complexity policies, description change tracking, issue board configuration, coverage guided fuzz testing, and maintenance mode. We think these are compelling reasons that customers would want to start sending us their data and actually using the registration feature capability. After that, we have the unified tracking API. We've done a lot of really great work doing research, good discussions, some user interviews with a prototype. And this iteration, we want to actually take the next step of putting a proof of concept of that API together, both for the underlying APIs as well as that generator that we've been working on the prototype through. We also then want to go ahead and select an event to actually migrate to use this new approach, because if we can take what we've built from a POC or a prototype stage and show this is how it would actually look with something we're doing today in the product, that's going to be really compelling to the people we show it to, as well as uncover any sort of rough edges that we missed or use cases that we didn't think about potentially. Following that, we want to keep working on the JavaScript SDK for the analytics offering, specifically around adding documentation for it so that customers can actually use it without having to reverse engineer things themselves, and also tracking a custom event in the internal handbook using the JavaScript SDK. This is going to speak to our dog fooding value. We are getting very, very close to having our first customer ready to onboard to the new analytics offering. So they will be the first people to start seeing this documentation once it starts coming to life, which is also one of the reasons why this is important that we do sooner rather than later, since that user is going to be coming down the pipe soon. This next issue is about updating the installation creation date metric. This is a request we had from the business a milestone or two ago to better understand when customers install GitLab to when they start getting the value they expect out of it. And we want to make this metric a little bit more robust because we found the initial implementation had a way that you could delete the root user of a GitLab installation, which would invalidate the approach we were using in that first iteration. We also want to continue our conversion of Jitsi to Snowplow, specifically around adding scalable testing, make sure that we have a stable, reliable product going forward. We have a feature flag issue, and then our final last stretch goal is going to be defining this event removal process for Snowplow events. This is something we've seen many different teams. They make changes, they remove events, and it's more of an ad hoc basis. We don't have a stable process for that. And so that's one of the things we want to focus on. I talked a lot. Any questions? What do y'all think? Feedback, comments, concerns? Perfect. If you think of anything afterwards, I'm always available async, or if you want to talk privately, just send me a message. We can chat about it. Basti, anything you want to call out with the maintenance or the bug items?
I can just give like a general overview. I think there's nothing really new here. As you can see, most of it is actually carryover that we still want to do. A lot of it is around getting rid of usage data.rb. That's really one of our main targets. It doesn't really matter which one of those issues we complete or in which order we complete them. The important thing is that we complete them and actually make usage data.rb consistently smaller. I think that's going to be something that's probably going to accompany us over the next few milestones. We want to finish up upgrading the version app to Ruby 3. We have done all the testing for now. I think this is mostly just cleaning up. So the inside of the version app, the pipelines and everything is already running Ruby 3. So everything seems to be working well there. Yeah, just cleaning up to do. And then the rest is also cleanup work to remove the product category, also from the events YAML files. We also already did that for the metrics, and then replacing an old deprecated method with the new method that's kind of consistent with our like newer approach of doing some of the cleanup ourselves. So this is one metric that has been method that has been deprecated for quite some time, and we kind of waited whether teams will see the need to clean up themselves, but that really didn't happen. And I think it's still confusing. It actually confused us a bunch of times. So that's going to help in reducing confusion around our own API. Yeah, and then we have also carryover bugs that are regarding the service pings that we also want to address. The one IP addresses are not saved for incoming service pings, which can create or doesn't let us derive kind of the location where service pings come from, and then the Git version string that's not accepted. Currently, you can look into the issue to see what they are exactly about. These are not kind of severity 1 bugs, but still things that we definitely want to get rid of over time, since they degrade the availability of our and reliability of our systems. That's it, I think. So, do we have any questions there regarding the maintenance or bug items? Anything surprising or anything that you're missing? Maybe just to reiterate, I think on the top of what Sam also already said, the registration features that Sam mentioned at the beginning, they're all marked as deliverables, because I think that's something we're normally not used to in this group, is necessarily kind of having to provide certain features within a certain milestone, because a lot of our things are behind the scenes. And so We normally don't have this kind of commitment, like an outside commitment of, okay, we're going to release this feature, or customers are waiting for a certain feature. But in this case, it's really important that we get those done. I think there's already 2 people with Protja and Michal starting to work on those. If necessary, we're going to need more people working on those. That really depends on figuring out how much work these registration features actually are. Hopefully it's not that much, and then we can just kind of jog through them now at the beginning of the milestone, because yeah, ideally we don't have to race towards the end of the milestone to get them done. That's it.
Awesome. Looks like so I have the next one as well. So I wanted to talk about our OKRs. So I'll share my screen. We can walk through these as well. The link's there again if you want to follow along at home. So what our OKRs are objectives and key results. And really what these are intended to be for is to provide a broader sort of vision about where we're going, why we're doing what we're doing. And these are focused at a quarterly level. So you'll see these really start to influence each of the individual release plans that we do over the next 3 months. And the one that we have at our stage level for the analytics stage is enabling GitLab and our customers to understand how their apps are used and make data-driven decisions. We know that it's better to rely on data and being able to look at facts as opposed to anecdotes when we're making decisions for ourselves. We've done that with the analytics instrumentation group for years to provide information to the business. And we want to bring that same sort of value to our end customers to help them make those data-driven decisions as well. I won't go through the one for the product analytics group right now, but I encourage you to look at it on your own if you're interested. What this stage level OKR objective will boil down to is 2 objectives for our group. The first being, we want to introduce an easy to use approach to instrumenting GitLab that gives us room to grow. And this is really speaking to the unified tracking effort, tracking API effort that we're working on right now. And specifically what we want to be able to get to the end of quarter and say that we've completed is that the existing Redis HLL snowplow tracking is deprecated in favor of this new unified tracking API. That's not to say we fully migrated nor are we removing anything existing, but we're wanting to have it positioned where everything new uses the new API instead of the existing Redis or the snowplow approaches. Beyond that, we also want to convert at least 5 events to use this new tracking API. Again, by actually deploying this and having people start to use it, that's where we'll really learn a lot. We'll be able to show how much easier the new approach is compared to the old, as well as learn about some improvements that we could make that we potentially didn't think about. The second key result is about building a strong foundation for instrumentation of customer apps. And this is really a new area for us as we've really started to work on the product analytics offering, and this group will be supporting that. And the way that we want to do that is we want to get feedback from at least 5 different customers on the instrumentation SDKs that we're providing. We have the JavaScript one today. We're going to have the Ruby one shortly. We're going to have some additional ones. But whatever we produce, if we're not keeping our customers at top of mind and saying, does this work for you and your use cases, we're missing things. And so this key result about getting that feedback that's going to be actionable to us to drive improvements in the future versions, this is going to really be critical for us to make the best product we can. And additionally to that, we want to provide at least 5 language-specific SDKs so that customers can be building their own applications however they choose and still have a GitLab-provided solution to doing their instrumentation. We've gotten some pretty good conversations from customers around what their most common languages are, which is why we started with JavaScript. That's the main one our customers use. Ruby is the one that we're going to use for dog fooding. We've seen some customers use that as well. And we're going to keep working on figuring out what that most common language is for the 3rd, 4th, and 5th and follow on SDKs from there. So we're working on finalizing this week, but would love to hear your feedback. If you have questions, comments, concerns, we still have time to make some changes to these if we want to add something, remove something, make some changes. Otherwise, we'll call this our plan once we get to May. Okay. And again, if you want to talk to me either in private or think of something async, always feel free to reach out.
Maybe also just adding to this, I think this is very important, and because I'm not sure if we had objectives or key results beforehand in this group ever. I'm not sure about that. Mikla is shaking his head, so I assume no, as the most ancient member of analytics instrumentation. But I think this is really what should provide us with direction over then the next 3 months, starting in May, which is going to be soon. And ideally, these are the key results that we see there are measurable. I think that's the case for all of them, at least from my perspective. So we can say, yes, no, we achieved this, or no, we didn't achieve this. They should be ambitious, but at the same time, we should think they're achievable. And I think that's very important for us, so that we actually kind of put this front and center, and most of our work should go into this direction. I mean, there was always going to be issues that are impromptu requests that are really important, like the registration feature stuff and other things. But I think most of the long-running work should be going into this direction then. And so if you feel like any of those are either not achievable, you don't understand them, they're maybe also not ambitious enough, all of these reasons, if you have any feedback, then let us know during this week. Because at least from my perspective, the worst thing that can happen with those is that we kind of put them in and then we don't talk about them ever, because then they don't serve their purpose. I know that these like OKRs are often just also used from the top down, but I think your input is really valuable there. Yeah. And I think, Nikolai, you have a question.
I'm just curious because, as mentioned, about the OKRs should be ambitious, and I totally get that. But I'm just curious how we want to get to the 5 different languages, given the fact that GitLab as an organization is built on top of 3, mostly 3, I would say, Ruby, Golang, and JavaScript. So it seems that we may lack the expertise or the experts to help us create well-founded, well-rounded APIs in at least 2 languages. Even if you just go for the 3 that are available in GitLab, despite their popularity. So I just wonder if you have any idea, or we want to still figure it out.
I think so. Yeah, you're right. This is kind of ambitious. At the same time, it's not like we're creating SDKs from scratch. I think what we have to keep in mind there, whatever we're building there is just a wrapper around an existing a core, which is the Snowplow provided SDKs, and where Snowplow provides, I don't know, I don't have the top number on the top of my head, but they have a lot of SDKs. So I'm pretty sure that whatever kind of the most popular languages are the ones that we're going to choose, Snowplow is going to have like a supported SDK as the basis of this that we can use. And then at the same time with the Ruby SDK, we already want to kind of establish, okay, how do these SDKs look in general? So my assumption is going to be, I mean, TypeScript, JavaScript already covers the front ends. So most probably these are going to be other backend languages, .NET, Java, Python, are Go, are the ones from top of my head. So yeah, it's always just a thin wrapper. So yes, that's going to be a bit of effort to figuring out. At the same time, a lot of people in here, even in the group, have at least somewhat worked with other languages, maybe even not professionally. And so it's gonna take more work, but it should be achievable because it's, again, just this thin wrapper, and you don't need to come up with anything from scratch. And we want to provide those SDKs, but we also want to learn them along the way. So they don't need to be, like, ideally they are perfect from the beginning, but I feel like this should be somewhat achievable given the fact that it's just this wrapper.
Okay. Thanks for this feedback. One additional question that pops out, and I think that we probably should look at in really near future, is defining those languages as soon as possible. Because, for example, as you mentioned, .NET, it's not open technology, and having the tools and being able to develop even in this technology required some licensing and may cause some additional legal step and procurement step that will take time. And
that's a good point.
We may be just delayed, and that would add on top of the learning curve and time for us to ramp up. So having this solved out first and just moving this obstacle off our road would be a nice thing.
So I'll add a link to the epic that we have for these different client-side SDKs. It'll show some of the languages we're thinking about right now. But yeah, it's a good point. If we do have any sort of like licensing or legal concerns, some of these will be more viable versus others. So ordering is subject to change, obviously, but at least from my initial conversations, Python and Go are probably going to be the main one, third and fourth ones. Just because we also know a lot of the AI sort of use cases, machine learning, a lot of that's in Python. So that seems like that's going to be a really big choice for us. Like you said, Nikolai, we have Go expertise, we can dog food, and customers have Go. .NET, I'd be interested, not in this call, but learning more about any sort of licensing concerns, because we have heard a lot of existing customers have legacy applications in .NET. If .NET proves to be untenable for whatever reason, probably something like Java would be where we would go, again, for that legacy sort of application use case.
Do we have any more questions regarding the OKRs? Okay. If not, I can voice Radovan's asynchronous message, which is just that they're going to remove the Snowplow IP data now from the existing events in the buckets and then also inside of Snowflake. So kind of the getting rid of the IP data is something that we're going to be finalizing now with their help. Yeah. And then going on to the next one, that's something that came up now a bunch of times actually, is the inconsistent process when reviewing modifications of metrics. And that's about the fact that we normally discourage, I think the wording is always discourage right now, and not actually prohibit modifying existing metrics. And then instead people should create new metrics and remove the old ones, which is more effort. I think, so from what I saw, there's two problems with that. One, our language is not really clear in the documentation itself, at least from what I saw. Because again, it says discourage, which is kind of open for interpretation, and also when it comes to what exactly we allow or don't allow. And then on the other side, just a second, I have a problem with my. Sorry, I had a problem with my speakers. Yeah, on the other side, we are also not enforcing this consistently. So we had a bunch of MRs where people were able to merge in changes to existing metrics. And in some cases, it was then discovered retroactively or discovered by pinging people that this shouldn't happen, like external stakeholders, like the data team and so on. And I think I would, we probably don't have to go into detail in a discussion here because we don't have a lot of time anymore. But I opened up an issue to clarify this because I think the most important thing is that we are consistent and we kind of have clear rules around what is allowed and what isn't allowed, and we also enforce those consistently and make sure that everyone in here knows about it. So that's definitely not to blame anyone or anything like that. I think it's more kind of, this has been fuzzy so far, at least from my understanding, and it's important that we make it less fuzzy and make sure that it's not fuzzy anymore. There might be longer term solutions to the whole problem, things like versioning and so on, but I think that's a separate discussion. So first we need to make sure that we have clear rules and enforce them, and then we can also talk about, okay, what's the longer term solution that makes maybe life for everyone easier. So please have a look at the issue that I linked, since we don't have that much time for discussion, because I would really appreciate everyone's input. I'd really like to have everyone comment on there, or at least provide a check mark if you're okay with those changes, because I want to make sure that everyone read through this. All right. I think we're kind of close to the end. There's a bunch of read-only things. Mikola, maybe your summary we can also do next time in because I would assume that it takes
I
too
just
long.
added it can be read only. It's just a summary in the context for members that may not be actively following what's going on with GitLab internal events tracking, also known as unified event system. And if anyone has any question like what even the system is about or to any other sub points there, just feel free to reach out to me or Jonas, and we'll be happy to loop you in and give you more context so we are not that much siloed in our projects and work.
Cool. Yeah, then please everyone read through the read-only things. There's a bunch of them. Really appreciate your input there, or like keeping yourself in the loop. Do we have any last questions or anything that still should get mentioned? Nope. Then yeah, let's kind of end this meeting here, and everyone have a nice rest of the day or evening, and see ya. Bye.
Bye.